One of the things that people around me know me for is that I'm a bit crazy. And I get up at 4 a.m. in the morning because, well, I almost don't even know why, but I've tried to compile it into some form of a list that hopefully makes some form of sense. So let's just get into it, shall we? I've made a mind map of 4 a.m. and what it means to me, or at least the biggest things that I think are sort of related to it, if that makes sense. And if you look at someone who wakes up at 4 a.m., at least from my perspective, there's three main things that you sort of think of, or at least one, which is discipline. That's the obvious one. But there are others as well, but we'll get into that. And that's more so from my experience of it, so to speak. But if we start with the main point, which is discipline, because thinking about someone who does wake up at 4 a.m., at least in my head, that's very closely tied to them being disciplined. You have to have a level of discipline in order to wake up that early, in order to be consistent with it, in order to not snooze every single day and waste way too much time just thinking about doing it and not actually doing it. And one of the questions that at least I ask myself nearly every morning is, do I want to do this? Do you think that the person who is waking up at 4 a.m. wants to wake up at 4 a.m.? Because I don't think that you want to. It's not something that you do because you enjoy it or because you like find the pleasure in it, so to speak. You know that it's good for you, but it's not something that you actively want to do. It's not like I I wake up so filled with energy and I wanna, like, no, never. Like some mornings, yes, but that's maybe 1 out of 100. The other 99 mornings, I'm just dragging my feet. So then the question arises of what happens when you do it anyway? What happens when you don't want to wake up at 4 a.m., but you do it anyway? Because you see, that's what I think is what actually builds discipline, is doing something you seriously don't want to do. Like, it's the last thing that you want to do, but you do it anyway. Because I think that that's what builds the muscle. It's like going to the gym and putting the reps in. Over time, you get stronger. Over time, you go from just lifting the bar to actually being able to lift maybe a little bit more, maybe 30, 40, 50 kilograms. If you get really strong, you might even bench 100, you know? I'm not saying that I do that, but you can if you really want to. But that's the thing though, is that that discipline that you build by waking up at 4 a.m., it doesn't just translate to your mornings. Because what I've found from my own personal experience is that, especially the mornings when I am disciplined and I do get up early, I do sort of slap some sense into myself and drag myself out of bed instead of just laying there, my whole day sort of becomes better. It feels way easier to do difficult things, to have that meeting I didn't want to go to. Because if I can wake up early, if I can do a workout first thing in the morning that I don't want to do, everything else after that just sort of becomes easy. Because if I've already done the hardest thing first thing in the morning, then what else am I afraid of? Or, like, what else is holding me back, so to speak? There's nothing really. And so, not just discipline and not just throughout the day, but on top of all of that, those little, that, like, it may seem small to just wake up early, to get that as a sort of win for yourself. But I think it translates to something bigger, which is why I've written down self image. Because the confidence, the wins, the sort of dopamine you get from getting up early, from doing the things you don't want to do, it's sort of the best way that I can describe it is that it makes you a little delusional. And I know that that might sound extreme or wishy washy to some. And delusional may not be something that you strive to be. But I've actually figured out that maybe you should. Maybe you should strive to be a little delusional because you see, the self image, when you ask yourself, who am I? Who are you? Right this moment, who are you? And what do your habits say about you? That shifts and changes with this routine, with waking up at 4 a.m. Because look at someone who does wake up at 4 a.m. What does that say about that person? What does that routine tell you about them? Because at least in my head, it tells me that that person's disciplined. They probably have goals. They're probably working towards something bigger. They're not sleeping in for a reason. They're doing all of this challenging things, all of these like things that bring them discomfort, and they're doing it anyway because of a reason. They have some form of purpose in life. You don't have to have a purpose, but most likely that's at least how people perceive you. And that's also why this is so closely tied to self image, because if you see yourself as someone who's goal oriented, as someone who wants more out of life, then if you also wake up at 4 a.m., what does that say about you? And what does that tell you in your own mind? Because at least for me, it sort of becomes confirmation. It becomes a checkbox of, was I disciplined today? If I woke up at 4 a.m., then that's a yes. If I didn't, questionable. I can still be disciplined, but the 4 a.m. checkbox is a definite yes every single day. Even if I waste the rest of my day, I still won the morning. And that's kind of huge for me, at least. It gives me it gives me a sort of self-image that I am powerful, that I can do things that I didn't think I could or that I didn't want to do. And so, how does it make you feel? How does it make you feel to be disciplined? To be someone who wakes up at 4 a.m.? For me, it makes me feel powerful. It makes me feel, some mornings I almost feel unstoppable. Because when I've gotten up, when I've like dragged myself out of bed, it feels like you bash your head against the wall for the first half hour when you're just completely smoked. But you power through. You have some pre workout, you watch some motivational videos, and you still get that workout in instead of sleeping in. How could I not feel unstoppable on those mornings? How can I not feel like I'm ahead of everybody else when I get to the office? When I've already smashed a workout at 4 a.m. and most of the people around me are they've basically rolled out of bed, maybe had a sandwich, and then they show up to work. Like, yeah, it makes me feel better. And I know that that's gonna make me sound extremely arrogant, but I'll live with that. Because for me, it's sort of, it makes me feel like a winner. And that's why I'm wanting to share this with you, because just that feeling alone can give you more momentum than almost anything else. And that's why it's also so closely tied in with confidence. Because again, I'm gonna sound arrogant, and I'm completely okay with that. But the confidence that you gain is insane. The confidence you gain from waking up at 4 a.m. makes you feel uncomfortable. Like, waking up at 4 a.m. makes you feel so uncomfortable that you have to face all of those excuses, all of those parts of you that fight to keep you comfortable. And it's one of the hardest things in the world to do, especially in the morning when you just know that I could sleep in for 2 more hours. I could just snooze for as long as I want, almost. But you still get up. That's what gives you that almost unstoppable confidence. And the funny thing is, can someone take it away? No. Because no one can take away the fact that you woke up at 4 a.m. this morning. No one can take away that you're the kind of person who wakes up at 4 a.m. Nobody can take away that you're someone who does things that no one else wants to do. And that's why I think that this is so powerful. And that's sort of, to bring it all together, why I wake up at 4 a.m. That's why I want you to try to wake up at 4 a.m. as well. And it doesn't have to be 4 a.m. specifically, but wake up earlier than you're used to and see how it makes you feel. And I'm not just talking for a day. I've done this for I don't know how many years now. But once you get momentum enough to not drag your feet every morning, to not snooze constantly, you'll understand just how powerful this can be for you. And so that's what I want you to understand with this. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.